Venture capitalist Fred Wilson said, "I believe business model innovation is more disruptive than technical innovation." In this episode, you will learn the framework for how technology changes business models and creates millions and billions in value. Welcome to the Tech for Non-Techies podcast. I'm your host, tech entrepreneur, executive coach, and Chicago Booth MBA, Sophia Matveeva. My aim here is to help you have a great career in the digital age. In a time when even your coffee shop has an app, you simply have to speak tech. On this podcast, I share core technology concepts, help you relate them to business outcomes, and most importantly, share practical advice on what you can do to become a digital leader today. If you want to have a great career in the digital age, this podcast is for you. Hello, smart people. How are you today? I am currently in London, and even though it is supposed to be summer, it's just cold and people are wearing coats and sweaters. And I genuinely believe that this is divine punishment for Brexit. And I also believe that it is totally deserved. In this episode, we are going to cover the most prevalent business models that tech companies use today. And you're going to see that they don't only apply to tech companies because these models are as old as business itself, but tech has enhanced them. And I'm going to show you how that happens. This will give you a framework for analyzing and understanding a business. You'll be able to see what its original business model is and where the innovation is. And if this doesn't make sense right now, it will literally in 15 minutes time. This lesson is useful if you're going to do any serious work with a company. So for example, if you're going to take a new job, you should understand how that company functions and what its vision is, because you're kind of tying your life with it to some extent for a while. And this also goes for working with a new client, because the more you understand your clients, the better you can advise them. And for the founders and investors listening to this show, if you don't understand the business model and the innovation that you're dealing with, well, then you are in real trouble. Today's episode is going to feel a bit like a business school class, and you might want to take notes. And if you're on the road, you can get the transcript on the webpage for this episode afterwards and just highlight the key points. Let's begin class with a quote from Fred Wilson, a renowned and very successful, i.e. very rich venture capitalist. He says, "I believe business model innovation is more disruptive than technical innovation." That's an interesting view, don't you think? And now let's look at the Holy Grail. Which company has both technical innovation and business model innovation? Can you guess? Apple. What does Apple have in terms of technological innovation? The iPhone, obviously, the iPad, which none of us knew we needed until Steve Jobs basically told us, and the App Store. And now let's look at their business model innovation. Here are some examples. They make money through the App Store by charging a fee for any transaction within it. They also sell their hardware products like iPhones and AirPods and so on, and Apple products are not cheap. And also, Apple charges you to use the cloud to store all of those photos that you've taken on your iPhone. And here's another point. Once a user enters the Apple ecosystem, they usually don't want to leave, so it's super sticky. An iPhone is basically often kind of a gateway drug to a Mac and then a desktop and then the whole product suite. So you see what happens when you have business and tech innovation in one company? Well, Apple is literally one of the world's most valuable companies, and this is why pay attention to this lesson. Now, let's talk about different business models. Broadly speaking, there are 4 types of business models, and here they are. Number 1, product. Number 2, service. Number 3, matchmaker. And number 4, multi-sided platform. And let's see how they all worked before digital technology came along so we can kind of see the platonic ideal and then add to it. In biblical times, a product-based business could be a bakery. So a baker makes bread, you give them your coins, and then you get the product in return, i.e. bread. So that's pretty simple. A service before the digital age could be a lawyer. So you rob a bank, you get caught, and you need somebody to defend you. So you hire a lawyer. And yes, I am still watching Money Heist on Netflix, and it is excellent. What was a matchmaker before the digital age? Well, exactly what you think. It's a person who finds candidates to marry for those in the marriage market. And now let's move on to a multi-sided business. That's a business which facilitates transactions between two or more groups. Newspapers are a good example because they're relevant today and also before the digital age. Newspapers connect readers, advertisers, and publishers in one platform. Also, another example of a multi-sided platform are stock exchanges because they connect buyers and sellers and brokers. And there are lots of ways to make money in these four core business models, and we won't go into all of them today because this is a podcast episode and not an audiobook. But here is an example. You could have a product business, and in your product business, you could either sell the product or you could lease the product. So, for example, if you're a property developer, you could build houses to sell them, or you could build houses and rent them out to people. So now that you've learned about the four prevalent business models, product, service, matchmaker, and multi-sided platform, let's discuss how digital technology is used to enhance them. And I like this definition of business model innovation from Profit, a brand consultancy set up by Scott Galloway. Business model innovation is the creation of outsized value in the form of market share, margin, and defensibility. This means that with digital technology, you can take an age-old concept and grab more market share and build bigger moats and thus create an enhanced version of the old concept. So basically, you take a business and you put it on steroids. So let's use this definition to see how to create business model innovation. So we're going to cover market share, margin, and defensibility. For market share, let's take the matchmaker business and basically have a look at what the likes of Tinder and Bumble have done to something that used to be a hyper-local service. So matchmaking was obviously a hyper-local service before tech, and now it has gone truly global. And if you have ever used the travel feature on a dating app, you will know what I mean. And the shareholders of Tinder are thus able to make a lot more money than their shareholders in a local matchmaking agency. And now let's take margin. Digital technology allows businesses to make bigger margins, which then allow them to make bigger profits, which they reinvest into the business and grow even more. This becomes a flywheel that builds a company that basically nobody can compete with. And what does that sound like? Meta and Alphabet. They are both hugely profitable companies that now really control the advertising market. It's really a duopoly. Meta and Alphabet are both multi-sided platform businesses, and thanks to digital technology, they have massive scale and very high margins. By the way, did you know that if you were to raise money from venture capitalists for a consumer venture, 40% of the money that you raise would go to advertising on Meta and Alphabet, i.e. ads on Facebook and Google? This means that all of the other ad-funded businesses are struggling, even the ones that you know of, like Mashable and Vice. So if you have an idea for an ad-funded platform or want to invest in one, please be careful. And now let's take the third component of business model innovation, and that component is defensibility. Another word for the defensibility of a business is moat, as in the water you would have around your medieval castle if you were a 12th century baron. A moat makes your castle defensible because other people can't get in easily. And in business, a moat means that other people can't copy you easily or that customers can't really leave you easily. So how does digital technology allow us to build a moat? Well, actually, you can cheat here because I already gave you an example earlier on in this lesson. You know when I said that the iPhone is like a gateway drug to other Apple products, and once people are on Apple, they usually don't go back to PC? Well, that's an example of a high switching cost. Once you are in the Apple ecosystem and your iPhone, your laptop, and your desktop, and your watch are all synced to each other, you won't really want to buy a device that won't be able to speak to your entire system unless you have decided to start a secret double life. And this makes Apple super defensible, which is also an innovation of a business that literally originally started as just hardware products. So think about it. Apple started as a product business and then innovated its business model to become the behemoth it is today. And with this, my dear smart listeners, I've just taught you the recipe for innovation. And this is it. Take the 4 business models I've just given you and then ask yourself how you could use technology to reach scale, increase margins, or make them more defensible. And that is the business of tech. So literally take a product business, anything from a bakery to a clothes store to an oil company, and ask these questions. How could I use technology to reach scale, increase margins, or make this business more defensible? You could do the same with a service business. For example, ask how could we use technology to make this law firm reach scale or increase margins or be more defensible? The same questions work for matchmaking businesses and multi-sided platforms. So just in this short and sweet episode, you have learned a framework for business model innovation in the digital age. I think that's amazing, don't you? This will give you a myriad of ideas for how to invent something new or how to infuse innovation into the traditional business that you're working in. Now, when people are talking about innovation and startups, you can totally hold your own and you can understand what they're talking about and you can reverse engineer a new business invention. And this is a very valuable skill, my dear smart listener. And that's why you might want to listen to this episode again, just to make sure that these points sink in. And now that we've come to the end of this lesson, if you have found it useful, which I assume you did because you're still listening, then please leave this show a rating and a review. Not only will this be super helpful to me, your loving and generous teacher, but it will also help other people like you discover this show. And if you have smart friends, which I'm assuming you do because clever people hang around with other clever people, so tell those people about the Tech for Non-Techies podcast. Because if they want to have great careers in the digital age, this will really help them. So literally just send one person a message on WhatsApp today and suggest that they listen to the Tech for Non-Techies show. It might be exactly what they need to help them win that tech client, ace a job interview, or prepare for an investor pitch. And on that note, thank you very much for listening and for paying attention today. You have invested in your career and you should feel really, really proud of yourself. I am proud of you. Have a wonderful day and I shall be back in your delightful smart ears next week. Ciao.